The stars looked different from the bridge of the UES Pathfinder. Captain Jake Morrison had been exploring space for 15 years, but something about this system felt wrong. The ship drifted silently through the Kepler 442 system, its sensors, scanning everything around them. "Captain, you need to see this," Dr. Lisa Warren called from her science station. Her voice carried a tone Jake had never heard before, fear mixed with excitement in a way that made his stomach twist. Jake walked over to her station and looked at the display. What he saw made him freeze. Spread across thousands of miles of space was a graveyard. Not just any graveyard, but the remains of what looked like the biggest space battle in history. "How many ship?" Jake asked quietly. Lisa shook her head. "I can't even count them all. The computer says at least 10,000 wrecks, maybe more. Some of these ships are huge, Captain. Much bigger than anything we've ever built." Commander Alex Torres joined them at the science station. He was Jake's tactical officer and had seen plenty of combat in his career. But even Alex looked shocked as he studied the readings. "These aren't human ships," Alex said. "The metal is wrong. The designs are completely alien. And Captain, look at this." He pointed to another part of the display. "These energy readings, whatever weapons did this, they weren't trying to just destroy ships. They were trying to make sure nothing could ever live again." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. "What do you mean?" Lisa pulled up more data on her screen. "The radiation signatures show weapons designed to sterilize entire worlds. Not just kill everything on the surface, but make the planets completely dead for thousands of years. Who would build weapons like that?" The crew spent the next 6 hours moving through the debris field. Everywhere they looked, they found more evidence of massive destruction. Ships from dozens of different alien races, all destroyed by the same type of weapons. Some of the wrecks were so old, they had been drifting in space for centuries. "Captain," Lisa called again. "I'm picking up a faint power signature from that large wreck ahead. Something is still working inside it." Jake ordered the ship closer. The wreck was enormous, easily the size of a small city. Its hull was twisted and burned, but deep inside something was still sending out a weak signal. "Alex, take a team and check it out," Jake ordered. "But be careful, we don't know what's still working in there." 2 hours later, Alex and his team returned with something that would change everything. It was a small device, no bigger than a book, but it contained information that made Jake's blood run cold. Lisa connected the device to their computers and began translating the alien data. What she found was a record of the battle, written by one of the dying ships. As the translation came through, the bridge fell completely silent. "The Vorthak came without warning," Lisa read aloud. "They destroyed our fleet in minutes. But they didn't just want to defeat us. They wanted to watch us suffer. They used weapons that killed slowly, that caused maximum pain before death. Our people screamed for hours before the end came." Jake clenched his fists. "Keep reading." "We tried to surrender. We offered them everything we had, but they just laughed. They told us they had done this to 40 other races before us. They said watching civilizations die was their entertainment. They called it the Great Cleansing." The message continued for several more paragraphs, each one worse than the last. The alien race, called the Alteri, described how the Vorthak didn't want territory or resources. They were an ancient species that had grown bored with normal existence. The only thing that still gave them pleasure was destroying other civilizations and watching entire species die in terror. "There's more," Lisa said, her voice barely above a whisper. "A warning for anyone who might find this message." The final part of the translation appeared on the screen. Jake read it silently first, then out loud for his crew. "To any species that finds this record, know this truth. The Vorthak Dominion cannot be reasoned with. They cannot be bargained with. They exist only to cause suffering and death. They have technology beyond anything we possessed. They move through space like shadows, appearing without warning to destroy everything in their path. If you are reading this, pray they never find you. For when they do, your civilization will become just another trophy in their collection of extinct races." The bridge was quiet for a long time after Jake finished reading. Finally, Alex spoke up. "Captain, we need to get this information back to Earth immediately. If these Vorthak are still out there, Jake nodded. Lisa, how old is this data? She checked her readings. The battle happened about 50 years ago, based on the radiation decay. Captain, that's not very long in galactic terms. If this species is still alive, still active, then they might find us eventually. Jake finished for her. Over the next 3 days, the Pathfinder crew searched through more wrecks and found additional records. Each one told the same story. The Vorthak had spent centuries hunting down and destroying alien civilizations. They didn't conquer worlds, they sterilized them. They didn't take prisoners, they eliminated entire species down to the last individual. Dr. Warren discovered records from 17 different alien races, all describing the same methodical extermination. The Vorthak would arrive, destroy all, military resistance quickly, then spend weeks or months slowly killing every living thing on every planet. They recorded everything, keeping detailed files of each species' final moments. They're collectors, Lisa told Jake as they prepared to leave the system. But instead of collecting art or artifacts, they collect the death screams of entire civilizations. Jake stared out at the debris field one last time before giving the order to jump to faster than light speed. Somewhere out in the darkness between stars, an ancient evil was still hunting. And eventually, they might come hunting for humanity. A's. The Pathfinder disappeared into the quantum tunnel that would take them home. Jake made a decision. Earth needed to know about this threat. Humanity needed to prepare for the possibility that they might one day face an enemy unlike anything they had ever imagined. The journey home took 2 weeks. During that time, Jake couldn't stop thinking about the Altairi's final message. 41. Civilizations had tried to fight the Vorthak. All of them had failed. All of them had been completely erased from existence. But as Jake looked around at his human crew, he wondered if the Vorthak had ever faced a species quite like humanity before. Other races seemed to have broken under the terror and despair. But humans had a different way of dealing with threats. They got angry. The call came at 3 a.m, Earth time. Admiral Kate Sullivan jerked awake in her quarters aboard the orbital defense station and grabbed the emergency communicator. Admiral, long-range sensors are picking up massive energy signatures. The voice crackled through the speaker. Multiple contacts approaching from the outer system. They're big, ma'am. Really big. Kate was already pulling on her uniform. How big? Each contact is reading as roughly the size of a small moon, Admiral, and there are 12 of them. Kate's blood went cold. It had been 6 months since Captain Morrison's discovery of the alien graveyard. 6 months of humanity preparing for the possibility that the Vorthak might find them. Now it seemed that time was up. Sound general quarters throughout the fleet, Kate ordered. All ships to battle stations and get me a direct line to Earth Command. 20 minutes later, Kate stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance, humanity's largest warship. Around her, dozens of officers worked frantically at their stations. Through the main view screen, she could see the approaching alien vessels. They were unlike anything in human design. Each ship was a twisted mass of dark metal and glowing energy conduits. They moved through space with an unnatural grace, as if the laws of physics bent around them. Most disturbing of all was their complete silence. No radio signals, no communications, nothing. Admiral, Commander Torres called from his tactical station. The lead ship is powering up some kind of transmission array. Put it on screen, Kate ordered. The main display flickered, then showed the interior of an alien bridge. The creature that appeared was clearly not human, but it was horrifying in a very human way. It stood nearly 8 feet tall, with gray skin that seemed to shift and move on its own. Its eyes were completely black, and when it smiled, it revealed rows of needle-sharp teeth. "Greetings, young species," the creature said in perfect English. Its voice was smooth and cultured, which somehow made it even more terrifying. "I am War Master Kethvak of the Vorthak Dominion. We have traveled far to make your acquaintance." Kate stepped forward. "This is Admiral Sullivan of the Earth Defense Force. You are entering human space without permission. State your intentions." The alien smile grew wider. "Our intentions? How delightfully direct. We have come to judge your species, Admiral Sullivan. Your civilization shows promise. Your fear will be Exquisite. I don't know what you're talking about, Kate said, though she had a horrible feeling she knew exactly what the creature meant. Oh, but you do, Kethvac replied. Your Captain Morrison found our previous work, did he not? The beautiful garden we created in the Kepler system? 41 species have provided us with entertainment over the centuries. Your species will be the 42nd. Kate felt her anger building, but she kept her voice level. If you're looking for a fight, you'll get one. But we won't go down as easily as the others. The alien laughed, a sound like breaking glass. They all said that, Admiral. The Alteri were particularly defiant. For 3 days, they actually managed to damage one of our ships. We made their final extinction last for months as a reward for their spirit. The transmission cut off, and immediately the human fleet detected energy buildups from the alien vessels. All ships, evasive maneuvers, Kate shouted. Open fire. The first volley of human weapons struck the lead Vorthak ship and simply disappeared into its shields. The return fire was devastating. Beams of dark energy sliced through 3 human destroyers like they were made of paper. But these weapons didn't just destroy the ships. They seemed to tear apart the very atoms of the hull, creating expanding zones of nothingness. My God, Commander Torres whispered. They're not just destroying our ships, they're unmaking them. The battle raged for 6 hours. Humanity threw everything they had at the Vorthak fleet, and it barely slowed them down. The aliens seemed to be playing with the human forces, destroying ships slowly and methodically rather than ending the fight quickly. Captain Morrison, now commanding the heavy cruiser UES Vengeance, led a desperate attack on one of the smaller Vorthak vessels. His ship managed to get close enough to launch boarding pods before being crippled by return fire. Morrison and his Marines fought their way through corridors that seemed designed to cause maximum psychological trauma. The walls were covered with images of dying aliens from dozens of different species. The air itself seemed to carry the sound of distant screaming. In the ship's central chamber, Morrison found something that made him physically sick. It was a collection room, filled with preserved specimens from every species the Vorthak had destroyed. Hundreds of different alien races, all displayed like hunting trophies. Captain, one of his Marines called out, "You need to see this." Morrison followed the Marine to a viewing chamber. Inside was a holographic display showing the destruction of an alien world. The planet's surface was being slowly dissolved by Vorthak weapons, while the population screamed in terror. But the worst part was the audio commentary from Vorthak observers, critiquing the artistic quality of the genocide. They're recording everything, Morrison realized. This isn't war to them, it's entertainment. Morrison's team planted explosives throughout the ship before fighting their way back to their escape pods. The alien vessel exploded in a brilliant flash, taking several hundred Vorthak with it. It was humanity's first victory in the battle, and it felt hollow. Back on the Defiance, Admiral Sullivan watched as the Vorthak fleet moved toward the inner system. They had lost a ship, but they didn't seem concerned. If anything, they appeared pleased that humanity had managed to fight back. Admiral, her communications officer called out, "The Vorthak are broadcasting again." Kethvac's face appeared on the screen once more. "Impressive, Admiral Sullivan. Your Captain Morrison has provided us with our first casualty in over a century. We are most grateful. The death of our crew members will add a delicious irony to your species' final moments." "What do you want?" Kate demanded. "What we have always wanted," the alien replied, "to witness the extinction of another sentient species. Your military forces will be eliminated first, of course. Then we will visit each of your worlds and eliminate your population slowly. We find that the fear and despair of the dying adds significant flavor to the experience." Kate felt something change inside her as she listened to the alien's casual description of humanity's planned extinction. It wasn't fear or despair. It was rage, pure, burning anger that seemed to fill every cell in her body. "You made one mistake," Kate told the alien. "Oh? And what is that?" "You told us what you were planning to do." Kate's voice was deadly calm. "You gave us time to get angry, and you have no idea what humans are like when they're angry." The alien's smile faltered slightly. "Your anger will fade to terror soon enough, Admiral. It always does." No, Kate said quietly. It won't. She cut the transmission and turned to her crew. Every face on the bridge showed the same expression she felt. Not fear, but fury. Cold, calculating rage that promised terrible consequences for their enemies. All ships, Kate broadcast to the fleet. Fall back to Earth orbit. We're not running away. We're getting into position to show these monsters what humanity looks like when someone threatens our home. The Vorthak had destroyed 41 civilizations. They had perfected the art of breaking alien species through terror and despair. But they had never encountered a species that responded to existential threats by becoming more dangerous rather than more frightened. They were about to learn why that was a very important distinction. The attack on Mars colony changed everything. General Mike Harrison watched the orbital feeds as Vorthak ships slowly dissolved the domed cities on the red planet's surface. They weren't using their fastest weapons. They were taking their time, making sure every human on Mars died slowly and in agony. How many? Mike asked his aide quietly. 2 million civilians, sir. All dead. Mike closed his eyes for a moment, then opened them again. When he looked up, his aide took a step backward. There was something in the general's expression that hadn't been there before, something cold and terrible. Activate Protocol Omega, Mike said. His aide hesitated. Sir, Protocol Omega means total war. Every resource, every person, everything we have goes to military production. I know what it means, Mike replied. Do it. Across human space, the response was immediate. Every factory stopped making civilian goods and started producing weapons. Every shipyard began building warships. Every person capable of fighting was drafted into military service. But most importantly, something fundamental changed in human psychology. Dr. Warren, now working in Earth's primary research facility, saw it happening around her. The Vorthak had intended to break humanity's spirit by showing them the slow destruction of Mars. Instead, they had awakened something that no alien species had ever seen before. They don't understand us, she told her research team. The Vorthak think terror makes species weaker, but humans get stronger when they're scared and angry. Her team was working around the clock to understand Vorthak technology. They had samples from the ship Captain Morrison destroyed, and what they found was both impressive and terrifying. The aliens had technology that was thousands of years ahead of human science. But they had one weakness. They're overconfident, Dr. Warren explained to Admiral Sullivan during a strategy meeting. They've never lost a war, never even had a difficult fight. Their tactics assume their enemies will break under psychological pressure. Admiral Sullivan nodded. And we're not breaking? No, we're not. And they don't know how to handle that. The proof came during the second battle, near Jupiter's moons. Captain Morrison, now commanding the rebuilt UES Vengeance, led a squadron of human ships against a single Vorthak vessel. Instead of the cautious long-range fighting the aliens expected, Morrison ordered his ships to charge straight at the enemy. The Vorthak ships' weapons were devastating at long range, but the aliens had never faced an enemy willing to accept massive casualties to get close. Morrison's squadron lost half their ships in the charge, but the survivors got close enough to launch every weapon they had. The alien ship was destroyed, but not before sending a transmission back to its fleet. Morrison's communications officer managed to intercept and translate part of it. These humans fight like madmen, the dying alien had said. They do not fear death. They embrace it if it means harming us. Word of the victory spread through human space like wildfire. Suddenly, everyone wanted to join the fight. Civilian ships were converted to warships. Mining operations were turned into weapon factories. Earth's entire industrial capacity was focused on one goal: killing every Vorthak in the galaxy. Commander Torres led the first boarding action against a captured Vorthak ship. What his team found inside confirmed humanity's worst fears and justified their rage. The ship contained a museum of horrors, preserved specimens from dozens of extinct alien races, recorded testimonies of dying civilizations, and detailed plans for humanity's extermination. They have files on us, Torres reported to Admiral Sullivan. Everything about human psychology, our military capabilities, our likely responses to different types of attack. They've been studying us for months. What do the files say? Sullivan asked. Torres was quiet for a moment. They predict we'll surrender after they destroy 5 major colonies. They think we'll break when we see our civilians dying slowly. Sullivan almost smiled. They're about to learn how wrong they are. The turning point came when the Vorthak made their biggest mistake. War Master Kethvak ordered the attack on Luna, Earth's moon. His ships surrounded the civilian habitat domes and began broadcasting the slow execution of every person inside. They meant it as a demonstration of power, a way to break human resistance by showing the cost of defiance. Instead, it turned every human in the solar system into an instrument of vengeance. General Harrison watched the feeds from Luna and felt something snap inside his mind. Around him, his staff officers were crying, screaming, or just staring in shock. But Harrison felt only clarity. Cold, pure purpose. New orders, he announced. We're not defending anymore. We're hunting. The first human counterattack caught the Vorthak completely off guard. Instead of trying to protect their remaining colonies' humanity, through every ship they had at the alien fleet. The battle was brutal and one-sided, but not in the way the Vorthak expected. Human ships rammed alien vessels when their weapons failed. Damaged human vessels set themselves to explode next to Vorthak ships. Marines in boarding actions fought with a ferocity that terrified their enemies. For the first time in their long history, the Vorthak faced an enemy that seemed to enjoy violence as much as they did. Captain Morrison led the final assault on Kethvak's flagship. His boarding team fought through corridors filled with the preserved corpses of alien children from a dozen different species. By the time they reached the command bridge, Morrison's Marines were beyond rage. They were instruments of pure hatred. Keith Vak himself was waiting for them, no longer smiling. The alien that had seemed so confident during their first meeting now looked confused and frightened. You cannot defeat us, the War Master said. We are eternal. We have destroyed civilizations when your species was still living in caves. Morrison shot him in the chest with a plasma rifle. As the alien fell, Morrison knelt beside him. Maybe, Morrison said quietly. But those other species never had a chance to get angry. We did. The destruction of Kethvak's flagship marked the end of the Vorthak attack on humanity. But it was not the end of the war. As reports came in from across human space, a terrible picture emerged. The Vorthak had destroyed 12 human colonies and killed over 50 million people. Dr. Warren stood in her laboratory, looking at data from the captured alien ships. She had found something that changed everything. The location of every Vorthak base, every ship, every world in their empire. What are you thinking? Admiral Sullivan asked when she came to visit. I'm thinking about the 41 species they destroyed, Warren replied, and I'm thinking that they're still out there, somewhere in their home territory, probably planning their next attack. Sullivan nodded slowly. What do you recommend? Warren turned to face her. They wanted to show us what extinction looks like. I think it's time we returned the favor. Across human space, the transformation was complete. Humanity had started this conflict as explorers and colonists. They were now something else entirely. They were hunters. And they had found prey that deserved no mercy. The Vorthak had spent centuries perfecting the art of genocide. They were about to discover that humans were much faster learners than any species they had previously encountered. The hunt was about to begin. Captain Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Retribution and stared at the world below. It had once been beautiful, probably. Now it was a monument to murder. The planet's surface was covered with vast gardens, each one perfectly maintained by automated systems. But these weren't normal gardens, they were graveyards. Miles upon miles of preserved corpses from dozens of different alien species, arranged in artistic patterns that could be seen from orbit. How many? Morrison asked Dr. Warren quietly. She checked her scanner readings. Conservative estimate? 40 billion individuals from at least 30 different species. Her voice was steady, but Morrison could see her hands shaking. Captain, some of these corpses are children. Alien children, but still children. Morrison nodded and turned to his communications officer. Send a message back to Admiral Sullivan. Tell her we found another trophy world, and tell her we're going to sterilize it. This was the fourth Vorthak world humanity had discovered in their deep strike into alien territory. Each one was the same, a carefully maintained museum of genocide, filled with the preserved remains of extinct civilizations. The Vorthak didn't just kill other species, they collected them. Sir, Commander Torres called from his tactical station. We're detecting 3 Vorthak ships approaching from the outer system. They're not military vessels. Morrison studied the scanner readings. The approaching ships were smaller than the extinction platforms they had fought before, but they were still massive by human standards. As they got closer, Morrison realized what they were. Tourist ships, he said with disgust. They bring other Vorthak here to look at their collection. The 3 alien ships entered orbit and immediately began broadcasting messages. Dr. Warren translated them for the bridge crew. They're asking us to leave, she said. They say this is a sacred place, a monument to their greatest achievements. They want to know what we're doing here. Morrison smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. Tell them we're redecorating. The Retribution's main guns opened fire, turning the lead Vorthak ship into expanding plasma. The other 2 vessels tried to flee, but Morrison's squadron was waiting for them. Within minutes, all 3 ships were destroyed. Now for the planet, Morrison ordered. What happened next would have horrified the humans who had first ventured into space a century earlier. The Retribution and its escort ships used orbital bombardment to systematically destroy every structure on the planet's surface. The preserved corpses were vaporized, the monument gardens were turned to glass, and the automated systems were reduced to scrap metal. But Morrison wasn't finished. Using technology captured from the Vorthak, his ships poisoned the planet's atmosphere and irradiated its soil. When they were done, nothing would ever live on that world again. Send another message to Admiral Sullivan, Morrison said as his ships prepared to leave. Tell her we've started leaving our own monuments. Back in the Sol system, Admiral Sullivan was coordinating the largest military operation in human history. Every shipyard was working at maximum capacity. Every resource in human space was being directed toward a single goal: the complete elimination of the Vorthak species. Status report, she called to her staff. General Harrison stepped forward with a tablet full of data. We now have the locations of 47 Vorthak installations, military bases, trophy worlds, research stations, and what appears to be their home system. Total estimated Vorthak population is around 12 billion. Sullivan nodded. And our forces? 200 ships ready for combat, with another 100 coming online each month. We've recruited 5 million volunteers for the deep strike missions. All of them understand this is likely a one-way trip. The volunteers were the most disturbing part of humanity's transformation. When the call went out for people willing to travel deep into Vorthak space with little chance of return, the response was overwhelming. Millions of humans volunteered, all of them driven by the same cold rage that had consumed their species. They killed our people, one volunteer had told Sullivan during an interview. They tortured them, recorded their screams, and turned their bodies into art projects. I don't care if I die out there as long as I can kill some of them first. Commander Torres led one of the first deep penetration missions into the heart of Vorthak territory. His target was a research station where the aliens studied the psychology of dying species. What his team found there pushed human anger to new levels. The station contained detailed files on every species the Vorthak had destroyed. Each file included psychological profiles, detailed recordings of the extinction process, and analysis, of which torture methods produced the most entertaining results. They have a file on us too, Torres reported to Admiral Sullivan. They've been studying human psychology for decades, trying to find the best way to break our species. Sullivan looked at the data Torres had transmitted. The Vorthak psychological profile of humanity was detailed and accurate in most ways, but they had missed one crucial element. They understand that humans form strong emotional bonds, Sullivan noted. They understand that we'll fight to protect our families and homes, but they don't understand what happens when we can't protect them anymore. Torres nodded grimly. They think grief makes us weaker. They don't realize it makes us dangerous. The truth of that statement became clear during the battle for the Vorthak military stronghold at Kepler 186. The alien base was heavily defended and considered impregnable. The Vorthak commanders were confident they could hold out until reinforcements arrived. They had never faced an enemy willing to sacrifice everything for the chance at revenge. Captain Morrison led the assault personally, commanding a fleet of human ships filled with volunteers who knew they were flying to their deaths. The battle lasted 18 hours and cost humanity 40 ships and 20,000 lives. But when it was over, the Vorthak base was completely destroyed along with every alien inside it. Morrison, S ship was one of the few that survived, but barely. As his crew repaired the damage, Morrison recorded a message for any Vorthak ships that might investigate the ruins. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the Earth Defense Force," he said into the camera. "You came to our space and murdered our people. You thought we would break under the weight of grief and terror. You were wrong. We don't break. We adapt. And we've adapted to become something you never expected to face, an enemy that wants you extinct more than we want to live." The message was broadcast on all Vorthak communication frequencies. Within days, human intelligence intercepted panicked communications between Vorthak commanders. For the first time in their long history, the ancient aliens were experiencing fear. Dr. Warren analyzed the intercepted communications and found something remarkable. The Vorthak were trying to understand how they had misjudged humanity so badly. Their psychological profiles of other species had always been accurate. Those species had broken under torture and genocide exactly as predicted. "They can't comprehend us," Warren told Admiral Sullivan. "Every other species they've encountered became less effective when traumatized. We become more effective. It doesn't fit their understanding of how intelligent life should work." Sullivan studied the latest intelligence reports. Human forces were now striking Vorthak targets throughout their territory. Each attack was more brutal than the last, as human soldiers discovered new horrors in alien facilities. "They wanted to teach us about fear," Sullivan said quietly. "Instead, they taught us about hate. And they're about to learn the difference." The psychological warfare had become as important as the physical battle. Human forces began broadcasting recordings of Vorthak deaths back to alien commanders. They sent detailed descriptions of how they planned to eliminate the entire species. Most effective of all, they began using captured Vorthak to record messages explaining how it felt to be hunted by humans. "Your species made a critical error," one captured Vorthak said in a recording broadcast throughout their empire. "You assumed that causing pain would weaken your enemies. But humans are different. Pain makes them stronger. Grief makes them deadly. And now they are coming for all of us." The hunt was no longer just about military victory. It had become about proving a point, that some enemies were too dangerous to be allowed to exist. The Vorthak had spent millennia perfecting the art of extinction. Now they were about to become its final masterpiece. The Vorthak homeworld was not a planet. It was something far worse. Admiral Sullivan stood on the bridge of her flagship, the UES Nemesis, and watched the massive structure grow larger on the main screen. The Vorthak had built their capital around their original sun, creating a sphere of metal and energy that enclosed the entire star. It was beautiful in a terrible way, like a work of art created by monsters. "How many of them are down there?" she asked Dr. Warren. Warren checked her readings. "Computer estimates 8 billion Vorthak civilians plus their entire military command structure. This is their last stronghold, Admiral. Everything else has been destroyed." It had taken humanity 3 years to reach this point. 3 years of systematic warfare unlike anything in galactic history. Human forces had swept through Vorthak space like a plague, destroying every ship, every base, every world they could find. Now only the homeworld remained. "Sir," Commander Torres called from his station. "We're receiving a transmission from the surface." Sullivan nodded. "Put it through." The main screen showed an alien that looked different from the Vorthak warriors they had fought before. This one was older, its gray skin covered with intricate patterns that seemed to shift in the light. When it spoke, its voice carried a tone of authority that had probably commanded respect for centuries. "I am High Archon, Fethmore, Supreme Leader of the Vorthak Dominion," the alien said. "I wish to discuss terms for our surrender." Sullivan almost laughed. "Terms? You want to negotiate?" "We have much to offer," the alien continued. "Our technology is far advanced beyond yours. Our knowledge of the galaxy is vast. We could share everything with your species in exchange for our continued existence." Captain Morrison, now serving as Sullivan's tactical advisor, stepped forward. "What about the 43 species you exterminated? Did you offer them terms?" The alien's expression flickered slightly. "Those were different circumstances. We were younger then, more reckless. We have learned from our mistakes." "No," Sullivan said quietly. "You haven't learned anything. You just finally met someone capable of fighting back." She gestured to Dr. Warren, who activated a holographic display showing images from the trophy worlds humanity had discovered. Billions of preserved corpses arranged in artistic patterns, children from dozens of species displayed like hunting trophies. "You turned genocide into art," Sullivan continued. "You spent 3,000 years perfecting the elimination of entire civilizations, and now you want mercy?" The alien's composure cracked slightly. "We offer you everything we have. Our ships, our weapons, our knowledge of space travel. You could become the dominant species in the galaxy." Morrison laughed, and it was a cold sound. "We already are the dominant species. We proved that when we destroyed your entire civilization." Sullivan cut the transmission without another word. Around her, the bridge crew prepared for the final assault. Hundreds of human ships surrounded the Vorthak homeworld, their weapons charged and ready. "All ships," Sullivan broadcast to the fleet, "begin Operation Final Judgment." What followed was not a battle. It was an execution. Human forces had learned much from their war against the Vorthak. They had captured alien technology, studied their weaknesses, and developed weapons specifically designed to break through their defenses. More importantly, they had learned to think like their enemies. Captain Morrison led the first wave of boarding parties into the homeworld's outer structure. His Marines fought through corridors lined with more horror museums, preserved aliens from extinct species, their final moments of terror captured in perfect detail. "Sir," one of his Marines called, "out. You need to see this." Morrison followed the Marine to a vast chamber filled with what looked like video recordings, thousands of them, each one showing the final moments of a different alien civilization. The Vorthak had recorded every genocide they had committed, keeping them as entertainment. "How many species?" Morrison asked. Dr. Warren, monitoring from her position on the ship, checked the data. "Computer says 43 distinct alien races, every single one extinct. Captain, some of these recordings are over 2,000 years old." Morrison felt his anger crystallize into something pure and cold. These creatures had been committing genocide since before humans had invented writing. They had turned the extinction of entire civilizations into a form of art. "Burn it all," he ordered. "Every recording, every trophy, every trace of what they did. Turn it all to ash." The human advance through the homeworld was methodical and brutal. They showed no mercy because they had learned that mercy was something the Vorthak had never understood. Every alien they encountered was killed quickly and efficiently. There were no prisoners, no negotiations, no quarter given. Commander Torres found the central command center deep in the structure's core. It was a massive chamber filled with displays showing the locations of every species in the galaxy. Most of the displays were marked in red, indicating extinct civilizations. Only a few showed green, marking species that still survived. At the center of the room, High Archon Vethmore waited with the surviving members of the Vorthak leadership. They were no longer trying to negotiate. They were simply waiting to die. "You have doomed yourselves," the High Archon said as Torres approached. "Without us to maintain the balance, younger species will grow too numerous. They will spread across the galaxy like a plague." Torres removed his sidearm and checked the charge. "Maybe. But at least they'll be alive to make that choice." "You Do not understand, the alien continued desperately. We served a purpose. We prevented the galaxy from becoming overcrowded with inferior species. We were gardeners, pruning the weak so the strong could flourish. No, Torres replied. You were parasites, and now you're extinct. The execution of the Vorthak leadership was broadcast throughout their homeworld. Within hours, organized resistance collapsed entirely. The surviving aliens simply waited in their homes for human forces to reach them. Dr. Warren monitored the final phase of the operation from the Nemesis. Her job was to ensure that nothing remained of Vorthak civilization. Every computer core was destroyed. Every technological advancement was erased. Every cultural artifact was eliminated. It's almost finished, she reported to Admiral Sullivan. We've destroyed their entire database of galactic civilizations, all their research into genocide techniques and every record of their crimes. When we're done, it will be like they never existed. Sullivan nodded. What about their genetic material? We've taken samples for our own research, then destroyed the rest. No one will ever be able to recreate their species. The final act was the destruction of the homeworld itself. Human engineers had spent months preparing for this moment, studying the artificial structure's design and finding its weak points. Captain Morrison was among the last humans to leave the dying structure. As his ship pulled away, he watched through the viewports as charges detonated throughout the massive sphere. The Vorthak homeworld, a monument to 3 millennia of genocide, collapsed in on itself and was consumed by the star it had enclosed. Status report, Admiral Sullivan called as the human fleet regrouped. General Harrison consulted his tablet. All Vorthak installations destroyed. All alien ships eliminated. Total enemy survivors, 0. The species is extinct. Sullivan looked around at her bridge crew. These people had spent 3 years fighting the most brutal war in galactic history. They had seen horrors that would have broken their ancestors, and they had responded by becoming more dangerous than any species the galaxy had ever known. What are your orders, Admiral? Commander Torres asked. Sullivan considered the question. Humanity now controlled the most advanced technology in the galaxy. They had proven themselves capable of eliminating any threat, no matter how powerful. They could become conquerors, spreading across space and claiming whatever they wanted. We go home, she said finally. We've done what we came to do. The journey back to human space took 6 months. During that time, Sullivan found herself thinking about what they had accomplished. Humanity had not just won a war. They had eliminated an entire species that had terrorized the galaxy for thousands of years. Dr. Warren found her in the observation deck looking out at the stars. Any regrets? Warren asked. Sullivan was quiet for a long time. They killed 50 million of our people. They tortured them, recorded their screams, and turned their bodies into art. And they had done the same thing to 43 other species. That's not an answer to my question. Sullivan turned to face her. No regrets. The galaxy is safer with them gone. When the human fleet finally returned to Earth, they found a civilization that had been transformed by war. Humanity had spent 3 years focused on a single goal, the complete elimination of their enemies. Now that goal was achieved and people weren't sure what to do next, Captain Morrison addressed the question during a speech to the Global Defense Council. We learned that there are monsters in the dark between stars. We learned that sometimes the only way to deal with monsters is to become something worse than they are, and we learned that we're very good at it. The war with the Vorthak was over, but its effects would last forever. Humanity had proven that they were capable of systematic genocide on a galactic scale. Other alien species, the few that had survived Vorthak predation, began receiving messages from Earth.